Mr. President, we actually have someone that, and before we ask his question, I wanted to read this to the crowd. He had actually written a letter to you after you'd been shot in Pennsylvania. I would be honored if you would accept this small token that I received as a young Marine in Vietnam. My wife and I both thought it appropriate. God bless you, your family, and the United States of America. Sincerely, Dwight. Dwight, where are you at?
Whoa. Looks like a check. It's a check. It's cash.
For those of you who may not know, Dwight had given President Trump his Purple Heart.
That's right.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here. And let's not kid ourselves. What happened with Donald Trump and the Purple Heart wasn't some touching moment of patriotism. It was a goddamn sham. There's no other way to put it. This draft-dodging, self-serving con artist who ran away from Vietnam with his bone spurs excuse has the nerve to accept a Purple Heart, a medal meant for soldiers wounded or killed in action? Give me a break.
You didn't even have anything to shoot back at. You got guts.
Yeah, hold that up to it. Right there. He doesn't do this, but he's better than anybody as far as I'm...
No, I'm hardly better than you on this thing.
This whole stunt was designed to play right into the hands of his followers. People who at this point seem hell-bent on glorifying a man who wouldn't last 5 minutes in the trenches with them. But what does Donald Trump care about? Not the meaning of the medal, not the sacrifice that it represents, not the lives lost or the blood spilled. His first reaction wasn't respect or humility, it was greed. He actually asked if the envelope the veteran handed him had money in it. Is it cash, he said? That's Trump's soul laid bare for all to see. It's never about honor with him. It's never about the men and women who serve this country. It's about what he can get out of it. And if that doesn't tell you who this man is, I don't know what will.
We saw what happened, and it was a minor wound, but it was close to being a terrible.
You know,
I
said, how does it, why was there so much blood to the doctor? There's bleeding like crazy. This is a little fact. Some of you might have heard this, but you get hit in the ear, and it bleeds more than any other part of the body. So I didn't mind being hit that way. I don't want to be hit that way.
Here's a guy who called veterans suckers and losers because they didn't come home with bags of money. A guy who mocked John McCain for being captured and tortured. A guy who was more interested in avoiding service than standing for something bigger than himself. And yet this poor veteran, someone who's been in the shit, who knows what real sacrifice looks like, hands him a Purple Heart, as if Trump has any idea what that means. It's painful to watch because it's so blatantly manipulative. And the saddest part, the MAGA crowd eats it up. They see Trump as their hero when he's the farthest thing from it.
Donald Trump appears to have insulted recipients of the Medal of Honor. While praising Miriam Adelson, who he awarded the Medal of Freedom back in 2018, he then argued the civilian award is better than the one that is given to soldiers.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's right.
Look, real leaders don't ask if a token of honor has a check inside. They don't take medals meant for heroes and treat them like props in their narcissistic carnival. Real leaders earn respect through action, through calm under fire, through courage, through service. Trump doesn't know the first thing about any of that. He wouldn't last 2 seconds in a foxhole because the minute things got tough, he'd sell out everyone around him just to save his own skin. That's the truth. He's a con man. He's a self-absorbed coward who's more interested in padding his own bank account than protecting the people he claims to care about.
I walked in, the first question that I asked, should we change the name from Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg? So here's what we do. We get elected. I'm doing it. And we're leading in all the polls. We should get elected, but remember this, they cheat like hell. We got too big to rig.
And don't even get me started on his nonsense about renaming military bases. At that same town hall, Trump stood there, revving up the crowd, talking about how he's going to rename Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg. The crowd ate it up like it was some kind of victory for freedom. But here's the thing. This isn't about heritage or military pride. This is about pandering to a group of people who feel like the right to be their worst versions of themselves is under threat. Trump isn't protecting anyone's freedom. He's just tapping into their nostalgia for a time when being openly hateful, bigoted, and stuck in the past was acceptable. And he's wrapping it up in the guise of military honor and tradition. The truth is, changing the name back to Bragg isn't about honoring soldiers or history. It's about feeding the delusion that somehow, by keeping the name of a Confederate general, they're standing up against some liberal boogeyman who's infringing on their freedoms. And what freedoms are those exactly? The freedom to glorify people who fought against the United States? The freedom to cling to a past that should have been left behind centuries ago? The freedom to be the worst possible version of yourself, blaming others for your own failures and frustrations? That's the twisted message Trump's pushing. He's not encouraging these people to rise up, to be better, to improve their lives or their country. He's feeding them lies that reinforce their worst instincts, their anger, their fear, their hatred of anyone who doesn't look or think like them. And somehow they believe he's their savior, that he's the guy who's going to lead them to some twisted version of greatness, when all he's doing is dragging them and the country further into the gutter. These are the same people who watched him take a Purple Heart, not because he earned it, but because he manipulated a veteran into thinking he deserved it. And they cheer. They cheer like this man has any idea what sacrifice means. They cheer for a guy who has spent his life disrespecting veterans, trashing their service, and selling them out whenever it's convenient for him. And now they're cheering for the idea of renaming military bases after Confederate generals, people who fought to keep slavery alive. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Trump's entire shtick is about rewriting history to fit his narrative. He's not fighting for America. He's fighting for the warped versions of it that lives in his head and in the heads of his followers. A version where facts don't matter, where loyalty is bought and sold, and where the worst kinds of behavior are excused and even celebrated. The crowd at that town hall wasn't cheering for freedom. They were cheering for the freedom to remain ignorant, the freedom to cling to outdated, hateful ideas, the freedom to believe that people like Trump, who wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, are somehow their saviors. And Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that by stoking their fear and anger, he can keep them on his side, no matter how many times he lies, no matter how many times he sells them out, no matter how many Purple Hearts he takes from veterans who deserve better. Let's not kid ourselves. Trump is a dangerous man, not because he's smart or capable, but because he knows how to manipulate. He knows how to play to the worst instincts of people who are scared and angry. And he's willing to tear this country apart to keep himself in power. He'll take your medals, your loyalty, your dignity, and he'll give you nothing in return except more lies, more hate, and more division. So, here's the bottom line. We've got less than a month to stop this madness. Less than a month to make sure this con man doesn't get anywhere near the White House ever again. Less than a month to make sure we don't go backwards to a time when people like Trump could sell us out to the highest bidder and still claim to be patriots. Get registered, make a plan, and vote like your life depends on it, because it does. We can't let this man or his followers drag us down any further. Let's send him where he belongs, to prison, not the presidency. And that's a fact. Sappers clear the way. Airborne all the way.